had said he wanted their names to withstand time and the elements: Sara, Hannah, and Sam. Then hers, and Jonathan's, and of course Margie's. She'd always felt a little guilty over those 3 trees, wondering why she'd never planted one when her son was born. The best answer she could come up with was, it had been a different time, and people had thought differently back then. Her touch was reverent as her fingers traced the carvings. So many years ago.
Let's check out the pumpkin patch, Freddie. The temperature's starting to drop and I can feel the sun starting to fade.
She walked slowly, savoring the warmth of the late afternoon sun.
We're here. Show me where they are, Freddie. Oh, I wish I could see them. I guess I have to get down on my knees and feel around.
She'd planted 6 pumpkin plants in the early spring, the way she did every year. Her eyes hadn't been so bad back then. On her knees, her arms stretched out, she'd counted them. 19 pumpkins, each as big as a beach ball. When the triplets were little, they'd carve them all and line them up along the driveway, the candles in the center glowing brightly in the dark night. The triplets were in college now and didn't come home for Halloween. She still planted the pumpkins, though. She thought of it as a tradition rather than a habit. It was Sam who loved to toast the seeds. Sometimes he put sugar on them, sometimes salt. Then, when he was all finished, Sara and Hannah would snatch them away. Sam was so good-natured, he'd just shake his head and make another batch. Loretta dusted off her hands and knees. The wind picked up, ruffling her snow-white hair. She looked up, knowing she was standing under the old sycamore where they picnicked every year. Her voice cracked slightly when her hand reached down to pat her loyal companion.
I love this place, Freddie. I think I would die if I ever had to leave here. My whole life is here, along with all my memories. I wouldn't know what to do someplace else.
Freddie barked to show she understood as she guided her mistress back up the garden path to the back porch. When she reached the top of the steps and walked past the 4 Adirondack chairs, she stopped to smell the air. Someone over the hill, probably the new neighbor she'd heard about, was burning leaves. She dearly loved the smell. Another memory. Her kitchen wasn't modern like the ones she saw in the glossy magazines, because she didn't want a shiny, state-of-the-art kitchen. It wasn't that she didn't like new things. She did. But this kitchen was hers, and she simply liked it the way it was. She'd laughed there, cried there, comforted her son and her grandchildren there. It was where they congregated after her daughter-in-law's funeral. It was where they sat holding hands, wondering how they were going to go on without Margie. They did go on, because they had no other choice. Loretta poured herself a cup of coffee and carried it to the old scarred table that could sit 8 comfortably. It was a large old-fashioned kitchen. Maybe that's why she loved it so. The stove was old, with 6 burners and pilot lights that miraculously never went out. The oven was just warm enough to dry the orange peels and cinnamon sticks she replenished from time to time. The scent carried through the old house, even to the 2nd floor. The triplets said they loved coming into the house because they loved the smell. The refrigerator was an old-timer, too, big enough to hold enough food for an army. The triplets, her son, Freddie, and herself were her army. The heavy-duty dishwasher was her only concession to what she called modern wizardry. She only used it when the triplets were home. The cabinets were painted white, with beveled glass insets. The windows, and there were 6 of them, were diamond-paned and adorned with red and white checkered curtains. They probably needed to be washed by now, because she hadn't touched them since she did her spring cleaning. The floor was old, craggy and ridged, heart of pine. It was beautiful because she cared for it lovingly. She knew every crack, every ridge, every knothole. Rag rugs she'd braided herself were by the sink and stove. When it was time to clean them, she hung them over the banister on the back porch.